is Lauren Hollows from NOI Education Services, and we are continuing our wonderful interview series. Today, I am lucky enough to have with me Peter Doukas from Denison Toyer. I have been working alongside Peter for many, many years. He's definitely a font of wealth and one of the best people from a legal RTO perspective. Well, very fair, and I completely agree. Their approach, they're far more consultative, far more willing to actually listen, have lots of conversations. It has been so much better, over the last year.
So you cut out then for a moment. I'm sure you said your most brilliant thing.
Yeah, they're much more consultative. It has been a lot more of a pleasant and more consistent experience as well in my, my personal experience.
With mine as well. Right, and it's been a breath of fresh air, and I have to give credit where credit is due. You have to acknowledge Saxon, and now the senior managers, the deputy CEOs, I think they're called, have been, and I have interaction with them as decision makers in some instances. They all of the doom and gloom that I was predicting back in 2019 when they instituted the internal review processes, and in particular the statutory power of ASQA to make internal stay decisions.
Yeah,
I was writing to everyone back then because I thought the world was going to end, and a lot of my clients did as well. Because on paper, it did appear that that ASQA was being given unlimited power with respect to that internaal review process.
Look, to be fair, I think it could have gone that way, and I think actually this is one of the areas where COVID literally. I think COVID just it made everyone look at it and go, actually, hold on a second. We actually really need this sector to do well for Australia.
Yep.
And that, that then shifted things. And it's a pendulum. It's always a pendulum. Like it's always going to go a little bit before it centers back off. Do you know what I mean?
And that's the point. And I think also, but I think they're not by them. So I'm a bit comforted by the fact that they've got, that they've got a big stick, but they don't use it. And I understand that in the worst of the worst situations when they need to use it, they would use it, and I'm sure they have. I have been in some pretty hairy audits, big audits involved in some pretty big reviews in the last year and a half, and ASQA has been very, very reasonable. I mean, I don't always agree with them, but they've been very reasonable. They've not from the adversarial position, they haven't overstepped in terms of their negotiating position, their positions in terms of internal reviews and the stays that apply to internal reviews, and then also the stays that have applied to some of the tribunal matters that we've got. All of these have been rational, thought out, and have avoided the need for a stay hearing. If I can talk about the difference between now and 2019, in 2019 I did something 80 or 90 Did you miss the rest of it?
I did. I missed that. I'm sorry. You just need to reverse 30 seconds.
In 2019, so I was talking about the difference in terms of the different measures that you in terms of regulation.
Yeah.
And one of those is the matters that are in the tribunal. We used to have 400 or 500. I think it peaked over 400.
Yeah.
In the year of 2019, I think I did more than 70 contested stay hearings in one calendar year. This year, I think I've done one. Now, of course, there are less than 100 matters in the tribunal now, but the proportion of contests, and in particular unnecessary contests, has vastly declined because ASQA has taken a much more conciliatory approach. They don't get it right all the time, and they often make mistakes. But
it's made by people.
It's made by people, and that's fine. I'm concerned about the fit and proper person thing because it gives them it could allow them the ability to make more mistakes if they were. I'm also concerned because in my vision of the sector, I want a professional class of RTO manager. I really want, I'd really want someone who is, I'd want to be fostering that person, and I'd want to be fostering the idea, and I've seen it for the large private providers, not institutions, large private providers, where they go out and hire an RTO manager. So where management is different from ownership, right? That's what I call a large private provider.
Yeah.
Do we really care in the 21st century if the CEO of an RTO that's worth $100 million had a drink driving offense 20 years ago? And does that person need, and more importantly,
I'm going to put a pause on this interview for just 1 second. I'm just going to go and move something and see if this resolves the situation, because we're getting a lot of lag. One moment. Hey guys, I have finally solved my internet problem. So we are back with Peter Doukas. I can't even remember what we were talking about, because we did actually then start talking about other things in the interim. One thing I did want to ask you though, and I found this really interesting. So there was an announcement a couple of weeks ago about Crikos. The whole ghost colleges thing has hit the internet, of course. But there was kind of this little throwaway comment by the minister, talking about some of the new powers that had come out at the same time that the concurrent enrollment change was made, and that was in relationship to potentially putting colleges under suspension where they were identified as potentially being seen as one of these ghost colleges, or ones with large numbers, putting suspensions on their numbers and things like that. It was, it gave that very much 2009. We're going to re-register everyone sort of a vibe for me. But like, have you seen anything in relationship to that? Again, noting that we do say ASQA has been really fair and balanced in their approach of recent times, but also we know that whenever these things hit, they hit every single newspaper at the same time. There is always kind of a response that has to be seen from the regulator. So how do you think that that's going to play out?
They're going to overreact, and they haven't finished and they're overreacting. I've already seen it in some cases that are actually currently being litigated, where they've made decisions based on the press releases of these ghost colleges. Look, there are Crikos providers who do the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubts, no argument.
There are local providers who do the wrong thing, and shock horror, there are higher education providers who have done the wrong thing, and that does not exclude the group of 8 universities.
Yeah.
The difference is that the policing of these organizations should be consistent. I think the question of ghost colleges is solved by understanding the agency arrangements. It's not solved by fit and proper person declarations. It's solved.
Yeah, no.
It's not solved by just doing raids on attendance, because raids on attendance or audits on attendance are necessary. And
this is the problem. I mean, attendance isn't actually required for the vast majority of colleges.
No,
they're going off of course progress, which is
right.
So one potential fix is requiring actual attendance,
which they might do again. I mean, there was a big move back before COVID for attendance, and then it all disappeared. Yeah. The problem is that attendance is it's patronizing, right? The internet, and I advise a lot of big Crikos colleges who are finding that Australia's standing as a destination country for international students is starting to erode. We are the market for particularly vocational education students, international vet students, has changed and has matured. Our target market, our source countries for a lot of Crikos providers have students who are a lot more savvy than they used to be, have families who are investing a lot more money, relatively speaking, in their kids, coming to Australia, and that in the way that course attendance used to be monitored. When their brother or sister at uni doesn't have that kind of restriction.
It doesn't show up at all, except for finals.
Doesn't show up at all, and there's an epidemic of cheating going on in the unis, right? Then you question, they would be entitled to question the credibility of the industry. So look, I
Can you explain the mechanism of, because I think it was Section 97 is what they're saying that they're going to be using under the Act. I know absolutely nothing about this. So can you explain a little bit about what Section 97 is for those of us that don't know?
This is Section 97 of the ESOS Act?
Yes, I believe so. So what the announcement said is the government is considering using its powers under Section 97 of the ESOS Act to issue suspension certificates to high risk education providers. A suspension certificate means providers would not be able to recruit international students. And then it followed up to say the government is particularly concerned about more than 200 providers that currently have visa refusal rates over 50%. So that's kind of the area that they were looking at.
Now these are, so obviously these articles are written by people that have no idea about international education.
Yeah.
The Section 97 of the ESOS Act gives the immigration minister the power to switch off or suspend a provider's ability to issue a visa.
So basically be like, just like freezing prisms or something like that and going, no, that's it. No more COEs going out.
It's a power that has existed, and it makes sense that the immigration minister grants that.
Yeah.
Visa to come to Australia. Now to issue the visa application through the Department of Immigration. Now, it would mean, though, that if the immigration minister gave that suspension or made that suspension, the provider is not suspended in the ASQA sense. So the college would still run.
They would continue to run with the students that they have.
Correct.
Yeah.
So obviously it would be followed up by an ASQA action of some kind if the immigration minister got involved or the immigration department got involved. Now, the problem with the ratios of visa rejections is that often has nothing to do with the college. It often has to do with the student agents or the migration agents that are acting for those students or the students themselves.
Yeah, just not having enough money, and I think we're going to see that. I mean, they've literally just said they've increased the amount of money that students need to have. So I would anticipate that that's going to result in a whole heap more visa refusals.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's such a subjective test, even though it's always looked at as a science, as this scientific thing. It's such a subjective test. I have been inside large vet and higher education providers who have said that they don't want to be class 1. They prefer to be class 2 because they're, even though with a high, even they've got with a higher risk rating, with a slightly higher risk rating, their job is a little bit easier because they don't have the pressure of keeping class 1.
Yeah.
It really, and the problem is it's such a 1990s approach to student education to make it the educator's problem regarding the nature of the student applications, especially when the student agencies, often who have all the power in the relationship, control the enrollment. So I'd say regulate the agencies, have a register of agencies.
Please regulate the agencies.
So, you know, have a certain classification of third-party agreement that an RTO has to have a registered agency. So in other words, if you want to bring a person, if you want to be the person that introduces a student to an RTO, you need to be a registered international student agency, like the migration agents are.
I think that's the argument is that I think ASQA looks at the idea of regulating agents and regulating consultants, and they go that the cost of it is just too high to actually look at getting all of that set up to do it properly. And therefore, you know, we've kind of had to try, like, you know, an easy end run, acknowledging that, but it's just probably not, it's not going to work.
I don't think the cost is that high. I think there's less agents than there are RTOs.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's definitely
much less agents than there are RTOs. I think if they gave an amnesty by, you know, if they said that by the 31st of December, every RTO agency that wants to be operating has to have applied for a number, like they did with like ASIC did when it put in the director identification number a couple of years ago.
Yeah, fair.
Everyone got a registration number, and no one cares now, right?
Yeah.
So the situation is exactly the same thing. You should have a process of registration where there is a period of amnesty until then, and after that period of amnesty, no RTO is allowed to enroll a student unless it's from a registered agent.
Yeah.
Now,
and then we'll track the agent numbers, and then we'll slowly start to
the agencies are the organizations that have the ability to you know, introduce the students. Often that control the students.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Unfortunately, often they control the students. They direct the students to different RTOs based on what commissions they're getting and all the commission structures. All of this is, I believe, a much bigger problem than the providers. In the past, it used to be the providers that had all the power. Now it's not. Partly because, as I said earlier, you're not getting professionals running RTOs.